Welcome, everyone. Julian Assange is still stuck in legal limbo in Ecuador's London embassy. But is his case coming to its end? Well, a clerical error revealed that Assange is being tried in absentia in the USA. A kangaroo court for an Australian. I really hope that the irony of that is not lost on Julian Assange. Secret courts, zero ethics, and yet another nail in the coffin of the facade of the American legal system. While the exact details of the charge do remain a secret at this time, it is a damning blow to Assange, and it makes it painfully obvious that if he leaves the embassy, he will be on a one-way flight to federal prison in the USA. This would, of course, be the latest in the human rights abuses against Julian Assange, including his confinement in the embassy, which is basically at this point akin to maximum security detention, denial of access to his lawyers, etc., etc., etc. The policy is quite clear. Shoot the messenger. Yes. Assange has done more for journalism and transparency than almost anyone of the modern era. In what is glaringly obvious, but that is nearly always ignored in the conversations around people like Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, and Julian Assange, is that whistleblowers and those who put their hand up to help the whistleblowers must be punished. Forget about the crimes. Don't pay any attention to what was revealed. The empire can do no wrong. Make sure you trust your government, everyone. Move along now. Go back to sleep. What I want to know is, where is the cowardly Australian government in all of this? They're just sitting on the sidelines while they watch the USA take one of their own citizens down. Nice one, Australia. But Australia, you have to keep in mind, is part of the Five Eyes Alliance, so there are no surprises here. Hilariously, the British government is all too ready to get down on its knees to please America. Just think about it. How much money has been spent on the 24/7 police presence around the embassy in London? Surely there must be something happening in the UK where that money could be better spent. But I digress a little bit, because as we know, the UK must play its part in empire theater. How Assange hasn't suffered an extraordinary rendition yet is really quite amazing, because the current president of Ecuador is only too ready to sell himself cheaply to the US government. And of course, to use Assange as a bargaining chip in that deal to help get more money for himself and his country. While Assange was relatively safe under the former president of Ecuador, Rafael Correa, it now seems that his tenure at the embassy may be coming to an end, with speculation that an endgame is coming together for Julian Assange circulating around the internet rumor mills. And what about the media in all of this? Shh, silent. Oh sure, paint Jim Acosta as some kind of victim, and then ignore the most important journalism and free speech case in the world right now. But you have to keep it real. The legacy media outlets are mouthpieces of the empire. Little more. The most common theme from the legacy media is about how Assange must be brought to justice and he's a criminal for releasing the truth. Yet hilariously, Assange did the kind of journalistic work that most journalists only ever hear about in journalism school, before, of course, running off and selling out to the first company willing to hire them. There are almost no real journalists left, because the corporate media model doesn't need journalists. It needs propagandists. Should Assange go to prison, then I can only imagine the horrors he will suffer there. Remember, they tortured Chelsea Manning for years on end straight on US soil, in fact, only a few miles outside of DC. Human rights are a joke phrase used by the US government, and this proves it. A UN report on the Manning case called the treatment of Manning cruel, inhuman, and degrading. America! Yeah! Okay, look, I'm being a little silly now, but I do want to point out that I really don't want you to interpret this as some kind of an anti-American video. I love Americans, but the government does horrible things all the time. If you think that Assange is some kind of bad guy and should be hung from the public square, then may I ask you, what do you think should be done with all of the actual criminals that were exposed by WikiLeaks, the people who actually carried out the crimes, you know? Embarrassing the government is not a crime, and it should not be punished as such, but it has been made into one. Actually, if you love freedom and if you love the ideals behind America, then you should actually approve of what Assange is doing. The persecution of Assange is an absolute low point for democracy and democratic institutions. And this fight is not new. There was a time when American presidents actually had some cojones and were not puppets of the deep state. Let me quote one of those old school bosses in this short video clip.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion.
His words seem so poignant just a few days after the anniversary of his death. The situation hasn't changed very much, and the message is clear to anyone who embarrasses the empire. You will be crushed, because in an empire of lies, the most dangerous thing is the truth. And thus, Julian Assange finds himself in a terribly dangerous position, being the most hated man by the media and the government because of the truths that he tells about the empire. What do you think is going to happen to Julian Assange? I would love to know your thoughts about it down below in the comment section. Hit that thumbs up on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. If you want to stay up to date with what is happening in the crypto world and beyond, better hit that bell to stay up to date when I drop a new video. I would love to have a conversation with you over on Twitter, so make sure you follow me over there. Long live the blockchain. You're awesome. And peace out till next time.